Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, the chairman of today, Senator Dr. Oluwole Mamura. They say that the reward of teacher is in heaven. But today, as a teacher, I think I'm getting a reward on earth today because I'm introducing one of my students and mentees to do lecture today. It is my great pleasure to introduce a woman who has not only broken barriers in engineering, but has done so with excellence, grace, brilliance, and quiet obedience. Engineer Professor Mrs. Christianah Ijagbemi, proudly from Engr, is the first female professor of mechanical engineering at the Federal University of Technology, Akure. That is footer. You can use the word footer later, so that is footer. And the first female mechanical engineering, female professor of mechanical engineering in Southwest Nigeria. And the second ever in Nigeria. And around, she was the third in Africa. In a field where women are few and odd, she did not just show up, she stood out and set the space. When she gets to a space where there's no seat for her, she will bring a seat and table and even create an adjacent space for herself, which will become the focus of those that did not offer her seat initially. She obtained a PhD in a very unique way from UAE, Women's University in Korea. I'm trying to speak Korean language. Is it UAE? And she leads FUTA's Center for Gender Issues in Science and Technology and chairs African Steering Committee on Responsible AI for Climate Action. In simple terms, she's helping both engineering and the future environmental concerns. Her research spans green energy, climate solutions, and innovative engineering systems that reduces emissions. And recently, she delivered FUTA's 103rd inaugural lecture so clearly. She's not going down anytime soon. She's a fellow of the Nigerian Society of Engineers and a mentor of many. She is a true inspiration. Professor Ijagbemi is the inventor of the titanium-based and the automobile systems, which is now recognized worldwide. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in warmly welcoming the soft lady heart engineer of the engineering profession, an innovator, an inventor, and an academic for excellence. So, engineer Professor Mrs. Christianah Ijagbemi.
I want to adopt the already established protocol, but I will extend it a little further. To recognize the chairman of the event, distinguished senator, Dr. Oluwole Mamura, the guest of honor, Engineer Oluwole, Chairman of the Board of Trustees, Oluwole Awokoya Foundation, Dr. Sonny Foloroshokuku, Professor, members of the Board of Trustees, Professor A.F. Uboyi, Daddy, you're rightly recognized, and thank you for your contributions to engineering. Also, other members of the Board of Trustees, Professor Oluwole, Dr. Awokoya, Chief J.O. Anyegbo, Otumba Otukayode Otufale, Dr. Olutayo Martins, Ms. Simisola Awokoya, Dr. Omolara Awokoya, and Mrs. Esther Kenjosa, the Executive Director of Stevie Oluwole Awokoya Foundation for Science Education. Honorees of today, I equally recognize you and thank you for your contributions to humanity. I would also, at this time, want to acknowledge the profound privilege to be mentored by Professor Oluwole, the Pro-Chancellor of Olabisi Onabanjo University at Galway. His distinguished mentorship, just like he said, and commitment to advancing engineering has actually propelled me, to go further in engineering. He has been an encourager, and he has been very supportive. So, sir, I want to thank you very much for all you have done for the field of engineering, and particularly to me. I would also want to appreciate and recognize the members of my family here present, and my immediate family is represented by my daughter, who is also a graduate of engineering. She is representing other members of the family. And brother, Barrister Dr. Adeyemi, and Barrister Oluwole. Thank you for supporting me. To also my twin sister, I will call her my twin sister, we look alike. And our boy comes just alike, Mrs. Bolade. Thank you very much. I also want to acknowledge the presence of the president of the Nigerian Society of Engineers here present and being represented by Engineer Oluwole. Thank you very much. Because of the body in engineering, and the Deputy National Chairman of the Nigerian Institution of Mechanical Engineers. I don't know whether he's still around, but he was here. I saw him. That's Engineer Uche. Thank you very much for coming. And other engineers, fellows of the Nigerian Society of Engineers are present. And my constituency, the Association of Professional Women Engineers of Nigeria. I have my vice president here. Thank you very much for honoring me. Please know that I recognize and also appreciate your presence. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for honoring this invitation and being here today. Yeah, I'm to talk on tech meet tables, contribution of artificial intelligence and the quest for global food security. But before I go into this lecture, I want to acknowledge and also appreciate Professor Stevie Oluwole Awokoya. I wouldn't have been here today. And let me tell you my story. My mother, was one of the beneficiaries of the legacy of Professor Stevie Oluwole Awokoya. She enjoyed the universal primary education. She was a little older, then you have to do your hand like this to cover to reach your hairs before you can be registered to go to school. And she was a female, then girl child, would be told to sit at home. and then allow the boys to go. All because she would end up to go into a mandate. But luckily for her, there was this universal primary education, instituted by Professor Oluwole, Awokoya, and that gave her that benefit to go to school. At school, she was discovered as one of the best, even the best. And so a teacher picked an interest and said, "Young girl, you are not stopping at this level. Why don't you go further?" She said, "You all know I'm a girl child. And my parents too don't really have the capacity, coming from a polygamous setting, to sponsor a girl child to school, to go further. But the teacher had to, connect her to a Catholic mission school, where she actually had to do some few works before she could go into a modern school. At the modern school, she needed to go further again because she's so interested in education. And then she went into a teacher's college. We also remember that Professor Oluwole Awokoya did a lot in advancing teachers' training schools. And there she met my father, who had a similar story like her, was the best in his class too, no sponsor, for enjoying universal basic education, discovered to be very brilliant student, and was supported by maybe like a family, like how do I put this, a community effort to go to school. The two met at the teachers training college, fell in love, graduated, picked jobs, and then I came. So you can see that if they weren't at school, maybe I wouldn't have been. If they weren't at school, they wouldn't have even also, support me through education. So I want to say that the Lord bless the soul of Professor Oluwole Awokoya. His legacy lives on. And so I wouldn't go to talk more about that. I have that documented in the lecture. And I believe everyone here can also trace your link. You can also trace your link to one of his legacies, which I believe lives on, and according to him, So today we are talking about tech meets table. And he says in one of his lectures, he says only the best is good enough. Only the best. And which we all need to live with and live on. That we put in our best. And our best is not just for now, but even for the future. So we all know him to be a minister. You know what a minister is, right? And what some of his legacies were, like, he was able to build, build a legacy on universal primary education, which we or many of us, even our parents, enjoyed. And then he went further to advance teachers training schools, especially in science, trying to train teachers in sciences, as well as, foster gender equity, allowing more females to come into the education sector. How do I make that? Okay. Being under the degree, studying one way or the other to get formal education. My old mother, my grandmother lived up to 115 and she could still read and write, all because of the informal class that was organized then to train elderly ones in education. I just want to dust a few of some of the things he had done as regarding education. This is not responding. Artificial intelligence and the quest for food security. Looking around the world, we can see that about 673 million of people live with hunger. This is the SOPI report of 2025. And this makes about 8.2% of the total population of the world. And you can see that colored area, the area where we experience hunger the more compared to other regions of the world. And also, statistics also give such that Africa has about 19.7 percentage of our population experiencing hunger. Asia about 8.3, despite their rapid embracement of artificial intelligence or let me say technology. Latin America at 6.5 and the Oceania about 7.2. The North America, have the least, but they have another problem with food security. Actually meets the SDG goal 2, then we need to increase food production up to 70%. That's to meet the rate at which the world is growing. In terms of our population, we need to scale up food production to about 70% of what we are producing right now. And looking at these statistics again, we can see that, just like I said, 282 million in Africa experience hunger, and they are undernourished. Then also, we have 70% of our land being cultivated no more than like 2 hectares for farming. That's another problem. That means we're not doing enough. Also, the opportunity is there for Africa, especially Nigeria, to scale up to have about 60% support of food security, support for more food production if we can cultivate more. So Nigeria, as an example, when let's say as a case study, just like we have about 40 to 45% food loss. And these are foods that we actually consume in terms of maize, rice, and cassava. And this annual loss is valued to be up to $4 billion. Now let's go to what food security is. What is it? There are 4 pillars to support food security. One is the availability. How much of food do we have? We are talking about physical food that can be placed on our table. The topic is tech meat table. How much of such do we have on our table? And of what supply do we get? How often do we get? Do we take 1 meal per day? How many of us can afford, let's say, an average of 2 square, let's say it's not the 3 square, 2 meals per day? That talks about the availability of food. The physical availability of food can be termed to be having enough food. Then access to food. How much of the access do we have? Do we have what it takes to buy food? To buy a bag of rice or to get a meal, a plate of jollof rice at a restaurant? So the access to having, that's the economic ability to also purchase food or to get food, can also be linked to food security, or can be defined as, it can be defined as having been secured in terms of food. Then we look at utilization. The quality of the food that we have, how much of food is it into our body? Are we undernourished, or the quality is somehow degraded? Why? Then looking at the 3, availability, access, and utilization, we discover that there are some shocks that affect availability of food, access to food, and then utilization of food. And such are economic, climate, and conflicts like we have now. The US and Israel fighting Iran, and you can see the Strait of Hormuz being blocked, the prices of fuel rising. It's also affecting food as well. And it will affect the transportation of food, it will affect the production of food. So we can see these 4 pressures on the global food system, which are climate change, economic shocks, conflicts, and population growth. We can even match up with population growth if these three others are cared for. Now, like I said, I said, which pillar is the weakest in developing economies, like Nigeria? We are developing economies. The weakest pillar is access. That is the ability to buy food. We can look around and we can tell of the inflation rate that we have in the country, and which has affected many to purchase or to be able to get food and even to get a good one. I mean, quality, sort of. Because at times one want to go for something he or she can afford. So, of the four pillars of food security, access to food is what we actually need to address. And then now, to actually get this addressed, we need to scale up to agriculture 4.0. That is in the use of data-driven decision making. We need to get information as to see how we can improve or making food more available, giving more access to food, and also making food more, coming out with more quality in terms of the content of the food, the nutrients, as in the vitamins, the minerals in the food that will do our body good. So we need to scale up by bringing in artificial intelligence to help us in achieving such. And what is AI in agriculture? We can say it's when we adopt data, we ingest data, we transform data to make decisions that will also lead to more food production or better agricultural practices. And that can be done by using of sensors, capturing visuals, doing some spectral imagery, and also going down to machine learning, putting this into machine learning to identify crops and the challenges that each particular plant or crop has, and to improve on it. After this is done, then we come to developing machines that can work in form of human to support more production of food, and also connect to also supplying the food to where it's going to be needed and making it to even benefit mankind. So that's what artificial intelligence is in agriculture. So we go further to look at the supply chain. It is not just producing food. When we talk about food security, we talk about access. It's not just to produce the food, but to get the food to the table, to get to where it's going to be needed. And that's about the supply chain optimization. Trying to control prices, see to managing the prices that people can afford to get good goods. And so, how does artificial intelligence work in agriculture or to supporting food security? It's just by detecting, like here, the mechanism of detecting threats and disease. How does it work? To recognize the parts, you can see it isolates each of these problems. On this leaf alone, just on a leaf, artificial intelligence can diagnose the type of pest on the particular plant. It can diagnose the amount of water it will need, and so many other things like that. You can hear it works such that it recognizes the kind of pest on it, and then also the kind of ailment or let's say disease that might be affecting that particular plant, and from there it designs what to do. Now again, it works being a predictive model, like also using weather forecasts to tell about raining season, non-raining season, and also to tell about the amount of rain that will be needed per meter, maybe by square meter. So it is such that it can rain here. Irrigation can be done at 10 meters for about, let's say, 5 liters of water, and in another 10 meters, it can just be just 1 liter of water. All depending, through this we can achieve through artificial intelligence. So, and at the same time, distribute it across where it is going to be needed. Now, again, this is just here. This is also routing. It's talking about the transportation of food. Artificial intelligence can also help to discover where food will be needed. It can tell us where it will be needed, the particular food that will be needed, the best route to take. Probably, if you go through Lagos, Ibadan, Ilorin, the food can somehow get spoiled. Probably because of high temperature, also through the Kano. You can also design another, why don't you go through the water and get through to Kano? Maybe from Ibadan, from Niger, and all that stuff. That's what artificial intelligence can also do. It determines the route of the distribution of food also. And then where there are gray areas, where there are problems, it quickly identifies and provides, suggest different solutions, and of which you now look at and see the one that fits your particular problem. So technology adoption, that's artificial technology or artificial intelligence, correlates with food security. And in regions of the world where it has been adopted, look at Europe and Central Asia, they have been able to scale down, hunger to a very low level. And in sub-Saharan Africa, except in Africa, that we still struggle with food security. I mean, we struggle with hunger and try to put good food on our table. In Latin America, it is not as much. They also have adopted AI, and they are also working towards making food available for all. So, in one word, AI through agri-food systems, it's not just about technology upgrade. It is critical. It is a critical requirement for achieving sustainable development, and that's achieving that SDG number 2, which is zero hunger. So we need to move from the local farming where our fathers will go to make ridges, where they will have to plant in sun and other things to get maize to our table, and make machines to do that for us. And if we adopt AI, we are trying to make 10 times more food available, 10 times more of profit. And that has been experienced in countries where AI has been adopted. Now, we have this Global Agriculture Food Security Program. This program is supported by Melinda and Bill Gates and some other countries of the world, especially the G10, the G20s. And what is this fund for? This fund is to scale up AI in agriculture. That's artificial intelligence in agriculture. Because it is expected that if we adopt AI, we will have more food. And many of the places where there are no foods, many of the countries where there are no food, we can quickly, siphon, transport through AI to logistics. We can equally transport food to such areas. So this body, this one, funds concepts that will adopt, systems that will adopt AI in food production. And they have done by giving grants to so many countries who will present proposals, just like the House Scholarship being presented today, who will present proposals towards adoption of AI in agriculture towards food security. So like I said, they operate such that they have supported different outlets in Africa and even beyond Africa to support food production. And you know why they are doing much in Africa? It's because we still have over 60% of our lands being cultivated. All over the world, we have the best land for agriculture, and we left them uncultivated. And so to come in with AI, it will help us to provide food and even export food outside Nigeria, or let's say outside Africa in general. And now we want to also look at the contribution of African Development Bank in agriculture. This institution has done a lot, and we can even testify to this in Africa, and particularly in Nigeria, what AFDB has done to food security. They have supported with so many grants. They scale up in area of, training in farmers. That is in AI, in artificial intelligence. They have also supported in giving seedlings that would, produce better and would not be affected by pests. They have also supported irrigation farming in Nigeria. Particularly, they supported the production of maize, rice, expansion. We can see, I think, if we listen to our news providers, we hear more of AFDB in Nigeria. They have even supported in providing power, energy to rural areas so that farmers can have access, to communication, guidance, or whatever, what they need to have good life and to stay in the villages and produce more food for humankind. So they supported so many climate actions And you can see the figures there, to the tune of funds they have committed to supporting food security, even up to 2025. And even they would also go further, to do more. They intend to put 10 billion annually into food systems, even up to 2030. They have decided to do 50 million farmers empowered, by giving them access to digital tools. That's training till 2035. And also, they are trying to bring, precision farming back to Nigeria. Bring some of these institutions abroad, here, not only to Nigeria, to Africa, to see how they can help farmers in Africa to have access to the latest technology in agriculture. So that's all they have done. So agriculture, like we said, can no longer be done as we used to do. We need to scale up and we need to adopt AI. This is a man who would have, been harrowing in a farm, trying to do probably 200 hips per day. But with AI, he's being able to, cover a land, a very large span of land to farm. That's just an adoption, an example of what AI can do. And in India, where it has been adopted, they have recorded progress, and in terms of, food production, food distribution, and then even income that comes in from agriculture. We all know that Nigeria earlier on depends on the exportation of what we call granules, cocoa, and some other things before we discover oil. And agriculture can still provide such fund or such income for our country if we adopt AI. So in Brazil too, they have done that with soya bean. In East Africa, they do that by training, farmers to adopt AI. And look at Nigeria as an example. We have adopted, there are some, we have this Plant Village in Oru. It's an AI, is an app which helps farmers to discover pests that is likely to affect maize production. And also talk about irrigation. This is done already in Nigeria, and billions of naira have been, invested into this, and which has helped so much, even over, over 5 million farmers. And you all know that many of our population are into farming, especially women. 60% of our women are into farming. So by adopting this this Plant Village Nuru app, it has helped to increase maize production in Nigeria, and it's an AI app which will tell us when you need to plant. And if you look around now, you can discover that you have maize all through the year. In Nigeria now, yes, fresh maize now, and this is just because of that new app. So the economic yield, just like we said, can't just be, it's about 15 to 20% increase in overall crop production. And that's, you can see a drone there, probably drone monitoring the plants, trying to discover pests, trying to discover the soil condition, trying to discover the amount of water in each of the seedlings. And this information is captured to improve on agricultural practices. So beyond the farm gates, what else can we get? We talk about insecurity in the country. Do you know AI can also help? AI in agriculture can help. Why? AI in agriculture can tell of a particular region that will have more rainfall, which is likely to be green, probably in the next 1 month or 2 months or 3 months. And it can also tell about the amount of water that is likely to be in a particular ocean. And by that, if that is discovered, such people in that particular area can be warned against probably the invasion of the herdsmen, because they will definitely look for water and definitely look for greenlands. So AI can also help to solve insecurity problems in their agricultural areas. Or it's because if we don't, then data can be misused. It can be misinformed if it is not, well applied. And that's just it, because there is a touch of human in artificial intelligence, because it is whatever you put in as data that it will transform to give to you as what you can use as for usage. So we need also to regulate this aspect of data processing in agriculture. So countries that have done that, have been able to establish laws that guide the use of data collected, particularly in a particular region. But our country is still trying to. We have not been able. All the data collected here as regards food production or agriculture is still being processed somewhere else outside Nigeria. And then information, the results sent back to us, and which we also need as a nation to wake up to this. So that's what I said, the political economy of AI incentives. Our government should stand up to please do something about this. Also, those in private firms, researchers, and donors should see that if we generate data here in Nigeria, information about Nigerian soil, about Nigerian waters, about Nigerian crops, let it be processed in Nigeria, so that our information doesn't fly out and it is not also used against us. So that's about data sovereignty, the acquisition of data, the use of data, and then what our government should do about it. These we have not done anything, probably even in Africa, but we need to rise up to do such. And that's one of the things that AFDB is also trying to do for farmers or for the agricultural sector. Some of the problems we have as regards data acquisition and data dissemination in agriculture, and then adoption and then use. So these are algorithm barriers, connectivity gaps. Many of our farmers don't have, connections. They don't even have power to power their telephones or whatever that they can use to receive information. So we need to look at this and then support them. And then the privacy of data. Then this is also talking about global governance now. Regionally, we see for different regions of the world, they have laws that govern the acquisition of their data in agriculture, the use of their data in agriculture. You cannot just from Nigeria wake up and apply data acquired in India to adopt it here in Nigeria. If you do such, they have laws that can stand against you. But here in Nigeria, we still don't. So please, we need as a government policy to look into this so that we can generate our data, use our data, and then disallow our data to be used by other spheres of the world. Practical governance instruments. These are just to support what I've just said. And then Africa's position in global AI agricultural space, land space. It's like the investment is huge and we need to tap into it. And there are lots of funding as regards the adoption of AI globally that we need to, as Africa. And some of the countries of Africa have done that. Nigeria is one. Uganda, Ghana, Kenya, they have tapped into this world support for AI adoption, and they have been seeing or experiencing the benefits. These are some of the countries which have done that. Kenya, the digital hub, they have been able to train farmers, even in local areas, in their own indigenous language. So they have apps that speaks, that interact with farmers in 19 different languages that is common to their country. In Nigeria too, we have scale-ups. We have so many apps that is also supporting our farmers too. We'll go into that. Also in Ghana also have been also to do that, and they've been able to improve literacy in AI. So we also need to give our farmers this particular education on artificial intelligence in agriculture so that we can work or improve on food securities. Uganda is an example, and they have done so much in improving seed, like plant pest detection. They've been able to discover diseases in plants using and then being able, just from the leaf, and then being able to advise farmers on that and what they need to do. Nigeria too, we have so many of such. We have this Elo tractor, which is in Ibadan. They have helped, in fact, about 2.5 million farmers have registered with them. They help to plow. They help to bring artificial intelligence, robots, even to their farms, to help them to plow their grounds for cultivation. And they also help in detecting diseases, that crops will have. In Kenya too, they have the same thing. They've done that with tomatoes, and they'll be able to produce tomato. You can remember in 2024, the basket of tomato was going for over 100,000 in Nigeria. But now we have it better. Why? Because of AI adoption. So Nigeria, now let's look at Nigeria as a case study. We can say that if we do such in Nigeria, if we adopt AI, our own scorecard generally that we are still struggling with combating hunger. Many of our people are still going hungry on the streets, and we need to produce more to make food more available and more affordable. And so malnutrition is still on ground. We still have that up north, for some who could not even afford food. And then we need to do this so that we can increase on our yield, on our income, and also to bring more food to people, and then at a very good quality that can nourish their bodies. Then what do we need to do? We need to redesign our policy, get farmers connected with internet, with information that will help them, that will train them in indigenous language. Then the regulatory arm of the government should be there to see that whatever information or data generated, whatever is our challenge or the challenges around us, we begin to look for how to solve them. And if we can't, then we transport or we them outside for solutions. So institutions too, agricultural institutions should be of support, do more of advocacy to support food security. And then what will be a rate of investment? The truth on the ground is that, just like I said about Elo Contractor the other time, about 2.5 million farmers, have already subscribed to them for plowing. That's here in Nigeria. Yes. We've done a lot too in AI. That we may not know. The Kotobu too. Kotobu is also in Ibadan. No, Kotobu is in Iseyin. Kotobu too, what they do is that they try to connect farmers with suppliers, buyers who buy their products. And then they also provide information on how to increase yields on post-harvest. They try to transport and move products too. At the same time, they also try to, that's Kotobu, they also try to connect farmers to those who buy their products. And by that, they make good gain. Then the super farm is in Ibadan. The super farm does try also to help to sell. They connect farmers with even those who will buy cassava outside, those who will buy maize outside Nigeria. And by that, we have about 50% increase. And then in food, particularly in some staple food production, the Green Post Agri-Tech too, they detect disease. And so they have apps that can help you detect disease of plants, and they can also provide solution to that. So how do we make this systemic change to happen? How do we adopt AI in Nigeria? Make it something that will help us, economically, is by including women. Like I said earlier, 60% of our women are into agriculture in the villages. We might not know. Women practice agriculture more than men. And so we need also to bring them in. We need to educate them. We need to support them with funds. We need to tell them that, they can use AI, they can use drones to monitor their farms, and so that they can produce more for food, to have more food. Then another one is aligning our problems, just like I said, aligning the challenges we have in the farm to connecting them to agencies that can help them solve the problems. We have different, we have the Ministry of Agriculture, but we have other agencies within that ministry. So we should be able to go to the farms and tell them, you in maize cultivation, you are connected with this. And there are lots of them. We have IFAD, those are international bodies. But Nigeria should also come up with this form of agencies that will have funds. Probably they access the fund internationally, and then disseminate the fund to farmers here in Nigeria on ground. So that's another way to quickly, scale up the production of food. And that's in terms of operational realism and then the ecosystem of constitution. We should do it such that we make sure that data or whatever we generate, problems that we generate, people can easily go to a particular unit to report the problem. Oh, I discovered this on my farm, or there has been an invasion of this on my farm, and immediately that unit can, disseminate the information to the government, and they can quickly, stand up to correct it. And by that, we scale up food production. And also involving our youth into food production. This is done in India. What they did was they had to establish schools, universities that are mainly for agriculture. We have that in Nigeria too. And even in FUNAB, I know there was an app that was developed to detect pests, to detect the amount of water that crops will need. That's in FUNAB here. So we are doing a lot also in Nigeria to support food production using artificial intelligence. So what India did was, collaborate with the World Bank, create more schools of agriculture, and then train their students, in designing and even manufacturing robots. And that has helped their agricultural system. And so that is engaging the youth. So we can also do that in Nigeria to have, so adopting all this, I said the roadmap, 7-point pragmatic roadmap to scaling up AI adoption. If we adopt all this, we get our rural, we get solar panels or grids, get them connected with, power, then also provide human capital, like women and youth, let's encourage them, and agents to support farming, let's strengthen data governance, let's also see to supporting with funds, and also educating our farmers. That's going to be used. Then models that work, like I said, models that work in South Africa. Yes, South Africa is food sufficient. They even export, food outside Nigeria. Outside their country. The yellow contractor is also helping with Nigeria. And like I said, our farmers now contact them, subscribe to them to plow. And then also in Ghana, too, they've been able to train, just also to their farmers in different languages, develop apps that will support, and that has been working for them to meet up with hunger in their country. And these are other examples of other AI adoption in different countries in Africa and even all over the world. This is the roadmap to sustainable agri-tech. What we need to do is, let's digitalize our infrastructure. Let's increase our broadband. Let's see how we can also do that to the villages, get them also connected to internet so that they can see how things are done elsewhere. And also, the data platform needs to be regulated. The sovereignty of our national data has to be, looked into so that we govern what we have and we manage it ourselves. That will also help in food production. Then AI education programs should also be done in schools, into our farmers and things like that. And that will help us. Then how do we bring our tech to table? Bring tech meets table. How do we have more food? More food will be done. When we're talking about more food, we are talking of food of good quality, food that will not affect our health. So it's also by using AI to detect constituents of each crop or food produce and see how to improve. Maybe we are improving in iron content, we are improving on probably maybe in calcium. We want to get a food that will supply, that will give enough calcium that you wouldn't even need to take pills again to get calcium. So that is areas where we need to look into, and that can be achieved if we adopt AI. Those are areas where we need to expand on AI adoption. And the policy roadmap to food security is connecting our rural areas. Let's connect our rural areas to consistent power supply, regular power supply. Let's try to, also set up local computer centers or maybe data centers in our villages where, people can quickly report issues and even give information. That's data. That's when we talk about information. We are collecting data, information about what is happening in that particular region and how we can correct it immediately for food production. Let's also look at how we can train in our local language. see that we speak the language the farmers are speaking, so that we can bring AI to them. Translate AI. We don't always talk about coding. The woman in the village will code. So we should be able to do it in our language, in a language which they will understand, and be able to apply it on their farms or their produce. Then competency. We need to update our curriculums. Look at curriculum rather than see to include data science. In what we teach at school, so that everybody, if you know how to, source for data, you know how to process data, and you also know how to apply data. It will be very easy for you to apply it in agriculture, in engineering, or in any sphere of life you have. So we need to at least make data science part of what we teach in school, so that it can be applied, just like we speak English, or we use mathematics, or we do other things. So it can be applied to every aspect of life, and particularly in agriculture, so that it can increase food supply. So this is the food policy blueprint that I want to recommend to our country, and even for us to scale up AI adoption, to have more food on our table. Give ethical governance. Then investment, funding, money. When we put money into training our farmers in artificial intelligence, it will also help us. And also including, our farmers, we thought that we bring in young ones, we bring in women particularly, so that we can improve on food supply. So AI alone cannot solve global food insecurity. True resilience requires simultaneous insertion of artificial intelligence, the infrastructure that we need to put on ground, and then inclusion with even governance to make food available in surplus. So that's how I'll end the lecture, and also we want to thank the board of trustees for inviting me to speak. Thank you so much. And your quest for global food security. Like Professor Oluwole said in one of his lectures, that from classroom to farmland, from chalkboards to code, he didn't even know that we have coding, artificial intelligence will come on. Then, you can see that his legacy lives on, and his legacy feeds his future. Thank you very much for listening.
My dear Prof, when we were in university, when the professor spoke the way he spoke, we called it an erudition. Thank you for that erudition. And then we also had there some professors, a professor divided professors into two. Those who profess their subjects and those who do not profess their subjects. Definitely, we show today that you profess and you have deep understanding of your problems, and our food insecurity in Nigeria will soon disappear. Thank you very much. And on behalf of the board of trustees, I present you this as a token of our gratitude for the beautiful lecture you've given to us. Thank you very much.
Chairman of the occasion, crave your indulgence to have some of the people in the audience ask questions if they do have. and then you modify it.
Good evening, the chairman and members on the item. You call it top things in the item. I can project my question. My name is Oluwole. So by vocation, I preach on Sundays. So that's why I call this item. Let me thank Professor Ijagbemi for the presentation. And I'm happy because this will be the second presentation I've been listening to on food security in less than 5 days. And it has come from engineers, one on Saturday and one today. And unfortunately, I'm married to an engineer, and what I tell her in the house is what I will say publicly. Having listened to what you said, I still believe that we need to go back into what we did in the 1950s and 1960s in the Western region, in the area of agriculture. I noticed that we have not talked about storage. And when you go to areas like the latter area of Oyo State, I have friends who are church members who also farm. And I noticed that in one of my visits there, we still have the silos built in the days of the AG, still standing there, which shows that some of these things, when we too can serve the purpose of having them stocked for a while before we start selling them to the outside world. So my question is, how do we bring about the issue of storage to favor the local farmer, to be of advantage to the consumer, and to ensure that it is not genetically modified when produced for us, in order for our generation to be healthy? That's my question.
Great. To follow up on the last speaker, I want to bring in the extension agents, stroke youths. 60% of our population are youths. They've been able to project themselves, Yahoo Yahoo. But how do we turn the table from Yahoo Yahoo to the table and food? Because most of them don't even want to hear agriculture. They want moolah, money. So how do you turn the table? Thank you very much, and I appreciate you, Professor Rama.
Thank you very much, Prof.
Happy. If the board can kindly help us to appeal to the speakers, our lecturers, if they can get the papers, seminar, and our mail, so much appreciate that.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. My name is Yuki, and good afternoon. I came to ask the question based on the external agents. So I know that not all the farmers that will actually accept the use of AI and technology. So I wanted to ask, is there any way that you can still convince those people to be able to show that AI is actually going to be very helpful, more than just the manual method they are using? Thank you.
Thank you very much. So,
It's basic. It is when we have food that we can think of development. So when there is no food, then no development. So we need to do more to impress our young ones to come into agriculture by making agriculture more fanciful to them. And with the use of AI, you know, they don't need to come to farming or come to a land to plow before they are engaged in agriculture. Then how do we make this lecture available? I think through the board, you can contact the secretary to the board and see how you can get the lecture. Then also, my students, you're talking about making farming more convenient, right? Making it more what? More convenient. Okay, how to get farmers to buy into here? I said we need to go to speak their language. We need to, lots of advocacy, telling them if you do this, okay, we can say now that we've been told that we can even plant yam at our backyard by not disposing the yams that we used to buy, put them in sacks, and then we get another yam. So if we do more of advocacy, it will help the farmers. Tell them the advantage or the advantages of AI, of using AI. You don't really need to carry your hoes or your cutlass again to farm. If you have a farmland, invite an AI expert. Let them come and study your land. They will tell you the amount of water you are likely to have in that land, when rain will fall on that particular land, the type of crop you can plant on that particular land, and so many other things like that, and connect you with, ops that will give you tractors or even robots that will help you to plow the land, and also come and monitor your plants, and also take your harvest to where it is going to be purchased. So that is, if we do more of advocacy, speak their language. Like we want to train farmers in Ijagbemi, you have to speak Yoruba. You want to train them in Kano, you have to speak Hausa. You want to go to the Igbo land, you speak their language. You speak the language. There is an example, a pilot example. I think that's one of the things I mentioned in the book. We are still on pilot scale. We need to scale up. A woman was into production of red pepper in Nsukka. He was producing red pepper at her backyard, and she's been exporting with that, just her backyard. So that's what AI can do. So we need to speak their language. Many of our women, just like you said, and youth, farmers, need to be educated, and it has to be done in the language which they understand, so that they can adopt AI. Thank you.